Welcome to Chapter 2. In this chapter, we're going to load in image planes in Maya in the front and side view. And then we're going to go on to building the blocking form in basic polygon geometry of the model. Let's start with loading the image planes. Let's go to the front view. Go down to View, Camera Attribute Editor, one way of loading the image planes. We're going to scroll down to Environment under there and click on Image Plane. Scroll back up to the top and click on the image plane, loading the image from the C drive. We're going to select the front BK001 JPEG image, which is the front image. Now let's scroll to the top, set the color offset a little gray, and change the alpha gain to make it a little transparent so we can see when we're modeling. Actually, let's make it 0.4 numerically, a little darker so we can see what's going on better. Let's scroll to the bottom now and look at the center, width, and height of the image. We want to change it around so it more matches the human scale. Let's first change the y-axis height to 3.033 and push the image back 10 on the z-axis so we can model better. And the width and height we're going to change to 6.7 to reflect more the size of a normal human. Let's go into the side image now. We can do that by image plane at the bottom of the, and select the side right view of the image. Scroll back up to the top. Color offset, lower it. Alpha gain again, 0.4. Now let's go to the bottom again and look at the center, width, and height. Again, to match the front view, let's change the y-axis to 3.033 and push it forward a little bit on the z-axis. And for the x-axis, we're going to make it a -5 so it's out of the way of when we're modeling. And the width and height should match the front view at 6.7. Let's close the attribute editor now and go into the perspective view. You'll see that the images line up evenly and they're out of the way of the workspace while we're modeling. And that's it. Let's start with a box. We're going to do box modeling technique for this DVD. So edge loop split right here. Select half the faces of the box, delete them. Now go into duplicate. -1 scale in the X, not a copy but an instance, and hit apply. Now you can move around one point on one side and it'll mirror on the other side, so you have basically a negative instance. Let's go into start sculpting. I'm going to use the front and side views to primarily block in the shapes of the overall body. First start off by doing the torso. Upper torso, now I'm going to do an edge loop split to the center here. Move the points down a bit. Now I'm going to select the bottom face, extrude that down, and that'll be the pelvis, or the area where the pelvis will be. Just get the basic form of it. Line it up with the background image, move around the points a little. Very important to use your reference. I'm just going to edit the points a little in the front view here. I'm going to pull in the points on the bottom polygon I extruded, and that'll enable me to extrude the leg out from the side. Now I'm going to extrude this face and start off the upper part of the leg, thigh area. I'm going to switch to scale mode now and flatten that polygon out at the bottom that I just extruded. Widen it out a little bit. Now I can start extruding down the leg. It's very important that you edit your mesh as you go while you're extruding or adding any kind of geometry. That allows you to have your shapes there instead of having to go back and do all of that later. Edit as you go. That'll be much easier. Extrude down again. We're going to make the upper part of the leg. Scaling also helps for modeling. Just extrude again. Rotate ever so slightly. That'll give you the knee area. We're going to extrude one more time. Well, not really one more time. We're going to extrude many times. You're going to hate extruding by the time this is done, or love it. Another extrude down, and that'll be down to the ankle area of the foot. And move it around and line it up to the image planes. Extrude down one more time, and this will be the heel of the foot. Oops. Let me frame that back into place. Now let's grab the front face right in front of the heel where we extruded and extrude that forward. And we're beginning to create the foot here. One more extrude for the foot. And that's all the basic blocking geometry of the foot we need for now. Just move a couple of points, line it up to the images better. Let me click into the perspective here. I'm going to need to add one more edge loop through the center of the chest here. That'll allow me to extrude the arm out from the shoulder area. I'm going to extrude outward here, and that'll create the shoulder, and we're eventually going to extrude the arm out of the bottom of that box we just extruded. But first, let me select the top face. I'm going to extrude up, switch to scale mode, hit insert, and snap to the center here. And that way I can scale in right at the center part. And we're going to create the basic top part of the bottom of the neck here. And now I'm going to just move around points, line up to the side view as best I can with the geometry I have. We don't have a lot of geometry. And I'm going to select the face at the top and extrude that up for the neck. One more extrude, well, two more extrudes. One more will take us halfway up the head. And I'm going to select the face on top there. Well, let me look in the side view here and just scale it. And now I'm going to extrude up from the top of the head. I'm going to move around the points to line it up to the side view. Now I'm going to select the front faces and extrude those out for the front of the head. Move around the points, line it up. Always use your reference to get the shape of the head right, or the body, or whatever you're working on at that given moment. So we've got the basic blocking geometry of the head there. Now I'm going to go into the front view and just round it out just a little bit. Tweak the neck, move the shoulders up a bit, just to line it up a little better to the image planes in the background. Next, let's look at what we have and extrude the arm down. Extrude once for the bicep area, the upper arm, and then extrude one more time for the elbow area, basically. A little bit of geometry, give it a little bend there. One more time for the high point of the forearm, and work our way down to the wrist with the last extrude. I only built the arms downward so I could match up the proportions of the image. Now I'm just going to move around some of these points and line it up better. A little blocky, but that's okay. It'll change as we keep going. I'm going to move the pivot point up and rotate the arm up, because we're going to make it in arm stretched out position for better rigging. Move around the points here, scale them, move them back. Now what I'm going to do is something interesting where I'm going to, first let's extrude the basic wrist area, small little area for the wrist. Now I'm going to select all these faces and rotate them 45 degrees forward, because we want to have 90 degrees total from the elbow to the wrist for rotating the hand down. That's half of it. Now grab the wrist area, rotate it an additional 45 degrees. So when you do create the hand, the geometry and topology flows in a twist down towards the hand. Now I'm just going to move around some points. And arms looking a little wide from the top-down view. I'm just going to push those forward a little bit. And that's our blocking model before we add more detail. Now I'm going to do an edge loop down the center of the arm that's going to carry through the legs and side of the torso. I'm going to do another edge loop through the arm that's only going to carry through the top of the arm and over the shoulder. The next edge loop is going to be down the center of the torso. I'm going to edge loop here, and it's going to go through the pelvis and above the top of the head. And one edge loop through the leg, and it'll only carry through the bottom of the feet and down back the other side of the leg. Now that I've added all these edge loops, it's very important to round out the forms of the body. You've added geometry, so that requires you to shape it. You can't leave it the way it is because it'll be too blocky. If you don't round the shapes out now, it'll come back and haunt you towards the end. Because you'll add a lot of geometry, you'll detail out the model, and you'll realize it's too boxy looking. Every time you add an edge loop or an extrude, shape the model, round out the surfaces. It's very important. I can't stress this enough. So we're going to round out the legs you saw. Now round out the torso a little. I like to push the points as far as possible with the geometry I have before I decide to add any more geometry. Once I can't push the points any further, that's when I add more geometry. And that's what you should aim to do too. With poly modeling, you can be very efficient and have optimized models if you plan ahead and try to get the forms before you get to the details. So I'm just tweaking around, rounding out the forms of the shoulders. And now going to the head, rounding out the shape of the head a little bit. We can't do much. It doesn't really matter for us to align it up to the background and front and side images. We're just rounding out the form. It's not necessary to do front and side views also while we're working. Now I'm also going to grab the points right there, the neck, push it down, and define the clavicle area a little. Most people don't do that enough when they're at this early stage, but it's important to get the shapes right now. Now I'm going to round out the wrist area, just a little bit, not a lot. Zoom out, look at the legs, round out the foot area. We don't have a lot of geometry there, but what we do have, we can sculpt as best we can. Next, I want to zoom in on the hand, or where the hand is going to be. We have 4 faces there. I'm going to scale those together, the points on the edges. Now select the faces on the outside side and extrude it out. Grab the points on the corner, pull them in to round out the shape. Next, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, extrude the 2 faces, and pull the points in to round out the shape. Basically, you're trying to create the palm of the hand. Now you have 4 rows of 2 polygons. That way, you have basically 4 fingers there for your fingers. I'm going to grab all those faces that I just created and extrude outward to create the rest of the palm. Now I have 2 polygons selected. I'm going to extrude that out for the first section of the index finger. Scale it down a little bit. Round out the shape before you go any further. I want you to select the faces there at the front again. Extrude them out for the second part of the index finger. And one more time for this third section. And push that area back, and you're going to extrude one more time for where the nail area is going to go. So you should have 4 sections. Now I'm just going to edit the points, shape the finger a little. Not too much, just enough to get the overall shape of the finger. Push the points down, define the nail. It looks a little wide on top. I'm going to narrow it out and round out the form. We only have 6 polygons to work with right now, so we can't do a lot of rounding, but as much as we can do, we will. So that gives you the index finger. We're not going to build the other fingers right now. Next I'm going to move on to building the thumb. And it's going to be the two faces right back here. Let's extrude that out. Side, one face is facing down. And once you extrude it, shape it. Make a hexagonal shape that'll eventually round out when you smooth it. And we're going to select those two faces and extrude down. The thumb is usually placed 90 degrees in relationship to 90 degrees down in relationship to the other fingers. We're eventually going to rotate it up a little bit, but for now, as you model the thumb, it's easier to model it straight down. That way you have none of the issues of trying to model it at an angle. So you should have 2 more extrudes. And we're going to extrude one more time. And that's going to define the lower part of the thumb. Move around the points. Shape it, scale it there. It's looking a little short. We're going to pull it down a little bit. Yeah, too short. Make it a little bigger. Define the pad of the hand a little more. Rotate it around, just round out the shapes a little. We're not going to do those other fingers yet. We're going to do those later. And let's go to the foot now. I'm going to add one more edge loop for the leg. That's going to help us out in creating the knee at later on point, and also help us out with the toes. We have 5 toes coming out of 2 polygons, but if we add one more line, it makes it a lot easier. We can also round out the form of the glutes a little more with the extra line. Always shape as you go. You add a line, round out the form. So this extra line will later on help us define the knee, the muscles of the quadriceps, but for right now it'll help us have 5 toes instead of 4, because the same thing wouldn't work for the hand. So scale them in, same way you did the hand. Push the points down, select the face on the side, extrude that outward, grab the points on the end, push them in to round out the shape. Do the same thing on the other side. Move around some points first. Give the foot a little bit more shape. Extrude that face out now. Pull the points in. And now you've slowly defined the area where the toes are going to extrude out of. Just going to move around a few points. Define the shape a little better. Very important before you start extruding the toes. Well, one more edge loop here. That'll allow us to have the same level of flexibility we have with the hand in rounding out the form. First, let's extrude the big toe. 1 extrude for the first joint of the toe. And round out the form. Make it hexagonal shape. You want to push up the toe that first extrude up a little bit. And you're going to select those faces and extrude forward. Push down ever so slightly. And extrude forward again for where the nail is going to exist. Now you can select, while it's still selected, you can push those points up. Round out the form a little more. Push down where the nail is going to be. And just shape the big toe. Might be a little too big. Scale it in. Now let's go and do the next digit of the toes. This is going to have three sections as opposed to the 2 of the big toe. Round out the two boxes first. Scale it down. Extrude one more time. Well, a couple more times. Same thing, push it up a little bit and extrude again. Push it down. And then one more extrude for where you're going to define the nail area. Scale that part together. Just round out the form a little more. We're not going to do the other digits of the toe either, because when we do detail out the toes, we can just copy them and paste them on the 3 remaining toes. So for right now, the big toe and the next toe down is good enough. Alright, let's zoom out a little bit. I'm going to add a few more edge loops here. I'm going to zoom in here, right on the abdomen. I'm going to select an edge loop there. That way I can define the abdomen geometry a little better, pull out the pelvic bone. Just minor tweaks, define the shape a little better. Another edge loop right around the neck, gives me a little more neck geometry. I'm also going to bring in the points right in the nose area is going to be together, a little closer. Pull this point down, define the clavicle a little more, now that I have more geometry in the neck. And that is our blocking model. Move on to adding detail.